Here's a pretty interesting one, right? So, are transplanted hair permanent without finasteride? This is something that's it's a pretty common question. All right, we got Dr. Asi Peretz and Dr. Eric Peretz of Trichogenics. Thank you guys for joining the podcast today. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of you guys. You guys are pretty big on TikTok, on Instagram. But I'd like to know a little bit more about your practice, how you guys got started, kind of what's your background, all of that stuff. So, I guess I'll start off with you, Aussie.
Well, thanks for having us, Melvin. I mean, we've been following you pretty much since the beginning. Well, not you specifically, I guess, but your page, the Hair Transplant Network. I always looked up to it, and I thought, gosh, it seems like the world's former surgeons are showcased on the Hair Transplant Network. So it's actually an honor to be chatting to you today. So thank you for that. I can take you back to my story where I was losing my own hairline. As a young emergency medicine doctor, I was actually working for Disney at the time. I used to run the medical centers on their cruise ships. So actually,
Oh, wow.
a lot of emergencies happening there, and I actually didn't know much about hair transplants. Probably thought of it as hair plugs. This we're talking about 2017 odd. I thought of it as hair plugs, and then I started doing my research. Came across the ISHRS, came across you guys, and I thought, wow, what an interesting field. I wonder if somehow I can get into this, and I think that spark just ignited something, and myself and then Eric, we pursued it to really the nth degree, I would say, and still are actively pursuing, trying to really give the best hair transplants in the world. I mean, that is we say it all the time, and that is really our kind of mission statement.
You mentioned something
Yeah,
interesting that I think not a lot of doctors speak about. You had hair loss yourself, which prompted you into
correct.
researching about hair loss. Kind of take me through
Correct.
that thought process, because hair loss is a very emotional thing for me personally. When I noticed, or when somebody first told me that, hey, you're losing your hair, it was devastating. It was like consumed my every thought. I mean, I literally, I would
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, I would think about hair loss. I'd go to sleep at night, I would think about hair loss. So, coming from a physician perspective, like how did that affect you? And what prompted you to let me look into this stuff? Are they really hair
Well,
plugs?
well, Melvin, if I can tell you the amount of photos I have on my phone that look like this, countless. If I go back, countless. So obviously, something that affects you every day, probably all day at random times. Like, God, I feel like I'm thinning at the top, and I think it's that sense of like time is catching up with you. Are you where you should be right now? I mean, and I think the answer for most people is no. I'm not where I should be. Everyone wants to be better, do better. So really, it feels like time is catching up with you. Look, it's manifested even in my hair. I'm aging, and I'm still don't have a girlfriend, or still in the same career that I hate, and I kind of wanted to get out for a while. So it's all of that compounded. That's I think what really gets to people. So even as a physician, I was going through the exact. I mean, at least these were my feelings, and I'm
Mm.
sure a lot of people share the same. So yeah, I'll tell you, I started doing my research, and guess the first pages that am I allowed to mention names on here? I mean, is that
Mention
something we
whoever
can
you
do?
want to. I have
All right.
I never have any drama or anything like that of other people
Okay.
being mentioned. So mention whoever you want.
Okay. Okay. Good. I never like to badmouth anyone really, but
Yeah.
anyway, so the first pages that that I found, and actually I thought were amazing. Before I knew anything about hair transplants, I found Istanbul Instagram page,
Of
uh,
course.
the clinic Instagram page, and the way they showcase these results, especially to the untrained eye, it's like, my goodness, this guy went from like being so much bolder than I am to having hair, and that's what you see. You just see these, oh my God, these transformations.
Yeah.
And long story short, I went to get my hair before I knew anything really about hair. I went to quite soon after that whole spark and everything I just talked about. I went to get my hair transplant also in Turkey, and man, maybe a layperson might look at my hair and say, "God, Doc, you got good hair. I don't know what you're complaining about." But you can ask Dr. Eric. We it is I have to go to a specific hairdresser, and he really has to do a fantastic job. And I have zero hair freedom. Okay,
Mhm.
if I don't cut my hair in a specific way, it looks super unnatural. Even to me right now, it looks super unnatural. And people don't realize the nuances that go into making your hair transplant. Something that you actually don't need to look at in the mirror every day and go, gosh, like, is this what it actually is? So yes, I've been through it myself, been to the clinics, got it done, and then learned so much from it. And yeah,
We're gonna correct Asi's hair
yes,
transplants.
we're gonna
So
And
correct it.
very soon.
Eric, your hairline looks magnificent. I'm assuming that's natural.
Thank you
Oh,
so
jeez.
much. It is
Lucky.
natural.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still lucky. I don't have good genetics in the family, so let's hope for the best. But so far, so good.
Personal question. I don't know if I can ask this, but are you on medication? You on finasteride?
I do minoxidil,
Okay.
but I don't do finasteride.
So
I
I
just
have
don't think I need it at this point. I've
Okay.
I've done the microscope on the head. I don't have that much miniaturization, so at this point, no. But yeah, very potentially in the future. No, I'm not against it. No, I put
Okay.
everyone on it. How could I be against
Okay. Okay.
it?
We know
Fair
it
enough.
works, right? And we
Yeah.
know like some people get side effects and the side effects suck. And again, I've done it. I've even felt the side effects, whether it could have been in my head, could have been real. I think I'm very sensitive to finasteride, so I seem to do absolutely fine with topical finasteride. Um, Probably not ideal. I should probably be on oral, but I do feel like it gives me sides. So
Interesting. I felt I'm in the same exact boat. Like I tried oral finasteride and I got side effects. And mind you, this was a long, long time ago. That prompted me to stop. And very recently, I got on, well, not recently, but like a few years ago, I got on topical dutasteride, which is actually the first time I like found you guys because you guys made a really good video on topical finasteride and dutasteride. And I sent you guys a DM like, wow, this is a good video, which I will go ahead and link in the description as well because anybody who's interested about topicals should check it out. And I feel the same way. I feel like it's good, it's working, obviously not as good as the oral, and I think we have to be kind of honest about that. And that's what I always tell people, like you have to kind of weigh the pros and the cons. Is this going to be as good as the oral? And the same thing with topical minoxidil for me is like the topical works, but I've tried the oral minoxidil and it works a lot better. It's more effective. I mean, it's just, but of course then people say, you can get side effects with your heart and heart palpitations and all this stuff. So
But as far as the finasteride goes, my first thought is applying anything to your head every day is a pain in the ass, right? We
yes,
can be
yes,
honest, it really is. So
absolutely.
we really try and like tailor the dose of the finasteride. So I think everyone has their own tailored dose. Some people might be on half a tablet every day or one tablet 3 times a week, and that seems to work for most people. But those people who really can't tolerate any sort of regimen of finasteride, those are the people I'll put on oral. I mean, on topical.
To be quite honest with you guys, I didn't even bother trying to like, do, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or, half a tablet today. I just was like, you know what? They gave me pretty severe side effects enough to where I was like, okay, my sexual health is more important than my hair at this point. I'm not going to entertain it. For if I have to be bald or have a good sex life, I'm going to choose sex life. For me personally, but everybody has to kind of weigh their own thing, and that's not
I
to say
I
that.
completely agree with you. I don't think any side effects, any at all, are worth having hair for, right? Because you know that this drug is not acting. You're not responding well to this medication.
like that
Right.
Jim Jeffries joke, huh?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I-
It's
ex-
what does he say? He says
Either I have hair and I can't fuck anyone, or I'm bald and no one wants to fuck
Wait. Exactly. But I'll probably catch some heat because I want to just say this: the vast majority of guys don't get side effects. So this
Uh,
is kind of the
Sure.
thing that I want to be open and transparent about. It's like I don't want to scare anybody away and be like, "Oh, this guy on the podcast said he got side effects, and the doctor too, so I'm not going to even try it." No, no,
yeah,
no. I would say give it a try. You don't know until you try it. Give it a shot, and if you get, you also have to like not take it with the idea that you will get side effects because
correct.
you will get side effects,
100%.
and hopefully you don't get side effects. I've spoken to so many guys who they say, you know what, even dutasteride
All
doesn't
of
give.
all of the studies have been done. All of those studies have been done on 1 milligram a day, right? So, if it's 4% of people get those sexual side effects at 1 milligram a day, then just imagine how much less it would be if you're taking
Right,
less of the
right,
dose, or if you're phasing it out over three
right.
times a
Correct.
week. That's what I tell a lot of my patients, and that's why we always start them on a little bit of a lower
And I
dose.
Yeah,
must say, the one thing I've never seen, and I think this is what scares a lot of guys, is that post finasteride syndrome, where you get these side effects and now they last forever. I've never seen it. I've literally started and stopped finasteride myself. Honestly, maybe 10 times in my life. Like 10 times, I've taken it for a month or two, been like, "Gosh, I'm getting the side effects again," and I've stopped. And literally within a couple of days, I'm more than back to normal. That's me and all of my patients.
We know that the half life is 8 hours, right? And that it can last in the skin for up to 28 days. So, technically, more than 28 days, it's probably psychological.
yeah. PFS is one of those hot topics that are like you have people that are so in their mind they're convinced this drug has ruined my life, and I've spoken to them on the forum. They've talked about it at great lengths. I don't know. I feel like, is it possible that maybe a few people that reaction, that chemical reaction in their body caused a really long term thing? I can't say that it's not, but I would say that for the vast majority, I don't see that happening. Even for me, when I took finasteride, I had side effects probably for about a month after I stopped, and then it went away. But the psychological damage, I will say, did last quite a bit. It lasted probably like 6 months because I was like in my 20s, and when something like that happens to you at a young age, you get kind of stage fright. It's almost like you have
Yeah.
it in your mind, like, okay, this is, I don't want this to happen, and it's like it happens because of that in your mind. So I kind of feel like that may be kind of happening to a lot of
I
men.
agree. That's what I think is happening with this PFS.
Yeah. Yeah, so I kind of want to shift gears here a little bit because I want people to know a little bit more about, Trichogenics, the clinic, you guys, how, you perform surgery, the process. So I always ask surgeons, because I think patients kind of want to know. Take me through a typical day of a patient at your clinic. Like, let's say I'm booked to have surgery with you guys tomorrow. What does a typical day look like?
Most of our, or majority of our patients will be flying in from overseas. Most of the patients are from the US and Canada. So it's a long flight, right? When you're flying, majority of patients are rather
Mhm.
large cases. So above 2,500 follicles. And anything over 2,500 follicles, we do over 2 days, right? So what we'll do is if you're doing a 2-day surgery, you'll get 4 nights at a hotel. So the first day when you land, you'll rest up. Depending on what time you land, we will either have a consultation that day and just, take some pre photos, go through the consent together, get the nerves down a little bit, and they'll go home, rest up. The next day is surgery day where we'll do the hairline, explain everything to the patients. Start the first day of the surgery. First day, they're always very nervous. But after a little bit of a sedative, a Xanax, they're feeling pretty chilled, and the day goes by quite smoothly. By the second day, they're already walking in like very relaxed. There was not that much pain last night. They feel okay. They're surprised that it was so easy, and the second day goes through pretty quickly. The third day is just a checkup. We do, if the patient really needs, we'll do a washing. Otherwise, we'll just inspect and see that it looks good. We'll take off the bandages. Yeah, that's how the third day goes. Uh, the fourth day, they'll fly home. in most cases. But we're in constant contact with them for the next 10 days until all the scabs come off. It's very important, to be in touch with the patient while they're healing, especially the first couple of days. Make sure there's no complications. Generally, you can see them within the first 24 to 48
I would
hours.
say even during
Um,
surgery. I mean, if there's something like
Yeah.
yeah,
necrosis
even
or
during surgery.
happening, you can catch it very, very early if you know what to look out for.
Something that my audience always wants to know, because you mentioned you had gone to Turkey. They're very familiar with the Turkish model of
Mhm.
performing surgery, which is basically in the day of surgery, you meet with the doctor, they draw the hairline, and then you never see them again. You go to the OR, it's a group of technicians, basically perform the entire surgery, from the extractions, the incisions, the placement. Really, the only part that the doctor was involved in is drawing the hairline, which even at that point, they have like the automatic like ruler thing, the laser
The laser, yeah.
so it's literally 5 seconds with the doctor. I want to know a little
Yeah.
bit more about like how involved you guys are in surgery. Who is kind of performing what part of the surgery. Are you guys splitting the incisions? Are you doing some of the incisions? Your brother's doing some of the incisions? Do you have like a technician that does the extractions? And of course, none of this is bad. I just want to preface that with, there's some very good surgeons that don't do extractions, that have a good solid team that do really, really good work. I can name a few that don't do extractions, that their results are as good as any doctor that does the extraction. So just not doing the extractions doesn't mean you're bad or anything like that. But yeah, if we could just kind of get
I
a little bit
completely agree.
more in depth with the aspects of the surgery.
I will start off by saying that, in the sort of rules of the ISHRS, they say that doctors should perform all incisions and
Yeah.
extractions. But
Otherwise,
they do
otherwise,
allow for a
otherwise, it's a
robot
it's a black market
to,
area. According to the definition, if it's not
yeah,
performed by a doctor, the extractions and incisions, it is black market.
but they would say that a robot is
Yeah,
doing it. And we know that the robot's not very good. And why not let someone who is super skilled, like a well-trained nurse, to do those extractions?
we don't do that, by the way.
So
Still,
I
just
think that it is okay for nurses to do extractions because they can be super, super skilled. At our clinic, we want the doctors to be responsible and have accountability. So we only use doctors to do pretty much every single step, right? The only thing the nurses do is separate follicles and use the microscope.
Mm,
people think like, well, what's the difference? Like if it's a doctor or a nurse. Well, guys, no one is coming to a nurse with a lawsuit. The doctors are responsible, which means that
right.
it doesn't matter how tired they are. It doesn't matter, if they had a fight with their husband or wife the night before. They are responsible for that case. They can't go and quickly finish your job and mess you up. Because again, they're the doctors and they're responsible. So there is a huge difference because if the nurse is doing it, they're not really accountable. It's not their name. They'll just get another clinic to hire them. It doesn't matter. With the doctor, it's a lot different.
And this is probably controversial, but I'm not opposed to a technician doing extractions if the technician is good and they have a like if you go to a clinic, right? And this doctor does the incisions, and maybe they do DHI or something where they're doing the incisions and the placement at the same time, and they have their technician doing the extractions, and this technician's been with them, let's say, 10 years, and their portfolio of results are excellent with from those 10 years. I'm really going to just look at, okay, is this clinic doing good work? Are they putting out good work? And if the answer is yes, then that's fine. I think it kind of gets muddled when you have the hair mill model, which I guess is kind of unfair to say the
Yeah.
Turkish model, because honestly, this is a global pandemic. You can find this hair mills everywhere in the UK, in the US, everywhere in Europe. The problem becomes when you have now, let's say, 8 ORs and 8 different groups of technicians, and they're always changing, right? You have high turnover rate. You're kind of training new technicians kind of on the fly, and a patient's going to you, and maybe you have some good technicians to do good work, but it's kind of Russian roulette. You don't know if you're going to get those good technicians, if you're going to get bad ones, and that's kind of why you see, like you mentioned, the like or these kind of places where They have some good result. They have some, arguably, you could say, okay, that result looks pretty good. Obviously not supernatural, but the average layman will say, oh, okay, that's a good result. And that's because,
Yeah.
surely they must have a few technicians that do good work, but they're few and far in between. So I think that's where the problem lies, is really not knowing, not having the same consistent team.
I also think that, one doctor cannot oversee more than 2 or 3 cases in a day. One doctor, right? Because even if you have talented technicians who, do the job really well, you're still injecting the patient with a decent amount of local anesthesia, which does have its potential side effects, and they need to be monitored, right? And at the end of the day, once again, it's your responsibility to look after these patients. God forbid something happens, you need to
Yeah.
be there. So I don't know how one doctor can look after 10 patients. It's
Yeah.
impossible,
Yeah.
right? Even if the tech knows what they're doing, it's still, at the end of the day, God forbid something goes wrong, the doctor needs to be there.
In your clinic, how many patients do you guys on average see a day?
On average, I would say 1 to 2.
1 to 2 patients per day.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
sometimes we
yeah,
will do a third, like three patients in a day.
yeah.
Okay.
But on average, 1 to
And
2.
actually, only if Asi and I are both
Okay.
there.
But you
Yeah.
have more doctors.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Yes.
big
So
distinction.
you were asking, how we actually do it. So again, we never use nurses or technicians, as Eric said, just because our doctors have trained with us for a long time, and some of them have had previous experience, and they're exceptionally good. What we usually do is we have one doctor who's like the lead surgeon, who does who will do parts of the surgery, important parts of the surgery, which I'll get to. And then we have the assistant surgeon who does pretty much the heavy lifting. And the reason we do this is because any hair surgeon will know, if you do this job for long enough, you will destroy your body. It really. I mean, if you, at the end of the day, my job is to give my patient the best result possible. And if I trust my doctor fully to complete the extractions, let's say I would always start extractions, because you never know until you
Yeah.
make that first incision or punch into the skin. You don't know what punch to use. You don't know what settings to put on your
So
extraction
yeah, you
device.
find the right punch, you find the right
Correct.
setting.
You do the local
Exactly.
anesthesia. So I always like the senior docs to do local anesthesia. You start off, you extract the first 200-300, make sure they're coming out beautifully. Then assistant doctor takes over, generally extracts the rest, but always senior doctors checking in every 30 minutes or so. Everything okay? Go pop in, have a look at the follicles under the microscope, make sure that there's no
Yeah.
micro trauma.
Also, our nurses are very well trained, right? If they're starting to see, oh, wait a second, there's transections, they will tell us,
Mhm.
right? Like, because you can't always see
Yeah.
with the naked eye when you're pulling
You
out
need
the
a
follicles,
tight shop.
even though you're
Yeah.
using loops,
It's really a team effort, and the
Yeah.
leader needs to run a tight shop, so that everything goes smoothly. There's really so many parts to this procedure, and so many places where things can potentially go wrong, that you really need, like, it needs to run like a well-oiled machine. So anyway, so that's how we do. So let's say on a 2-day session, we'll start extracting the one half of the head. Then patient will have a break. Then again, the senior doctor will come do the local anesthesia, start implanting. We use DHI or Troy pen implanters. And actually, we can get into this. Eric and I we were doing pre-made incisions for the longest time. And we had to it's pretty much relearning hair transplants in a way,
Yeah.
when you start doing Troy pen. But we did it just because I really believe it's superior to pre-made incisions. Lead doc will again do the local anesthesia, start implanting with the pen. If things are going really smoothly, no crazy rebound, no crazy bleeding, then the assistant doc will take over. Now we do have a detailed plan and exactly the densities we want in specific areas, and our docs know how to follow that really well. And then the lead doc generally does the last touches, like temporal peaks, hairline.
I do want to
Yeah.
ask you guys this, because I think that There are some clinics that kind of employ doctors, and the doctors do various parts, and it's sort of like a brand name. Do you guys have the doctor's information? Because this has sort of been what has been a lot of pushback with, like I mentioned earlier, a doctor may have a really good technician that does the extractions, but the patient never really knows who this technician is. Aside from the, they meet them the day of the surgery, but it's not listed anywhere on their website. They don't really have any information, which I think would be good to
Agreed.
have. It's a double-edged sword for the clinic, right? Because let's be honest, like if you promote an employee, they could always leave you for someone else, and so obviously there is some sort of like problem with that with a clinic. But is this information available on your website? Can you find the names of the doctors that are doing the surgeries?
Yeah, all the
Okay,
seniors are
okay,
there.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right, Melvin. And yeah, as Eric said, we should probably add some of our doctors there. But yeah, I guess it's something we're not really. I mean, obviously, it would really suck if we put in so much time and effort to training these doctors, and if they decide to once we promote them and everything, they decide to walk out on us, like, yeah, it would suck. But I mean, hopefully we provide them with enough value for them to stay. And I think if you do that, and you choose your doctors wisely from the beginning.
And the reason why I bring this up, okay, and this may be a little bit controversial, and if you guys want to cut this out on your version, I'm totally fine with that.
No, go ahead. I love it.
But there are franchises here in the US. I'll say one rhymes with Fosley. Basic purpose of this franchise is basically to set up sort of like McDonald's type of clinics, where you have one clinic, let's say in it could be in Las Vegas, one in LA, one in New York, one in Miami, all these different clinics, right? And they're all run by different doctors. So there are doctors there that are doing the surgery. But the problem that I find is that it's almost nearly impossible to know who's doing what. So right, they'll promote these results as like these are our results, but you don't know who did that, right? So and that's sort of been my biggest gripe is like, okay, I know for a fact that not all doctors are created equal. It's just it's a fact. I mean, I you see doctors that are very, 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 very good. Some doctors are mediocre. Other doctors are bad. For me, it's like it's super important to kind of know, at least from a patient perspective, who's doing what. So this result is this doctor's name, but he's under the umbrella of this brand. But at least you can kind of pinpoint and be like, okay, so this is the doctor doing this. This is the doctor doing this. Is that something you guys would be? Oh, is that something you do, or is that something you'd be open to doing?
We'd certainly be open to doing it, but I'll just tell you how we're maybe a little bit different from that Bosley model. Because if you think of sorry, I said Bosley, I mean Fosley.
If I
Uh,
was, yeah,
every Fosley clinic, as you said, has their own doctor, pretty much running the show, right? So they will do things differently, and I think we've discussed this before, Melvin.
yeah.
So they'll do things maybe they have a protocol, and they'll be like, you know what, I don't really like this, which is fine. It's the doctor's right to change things up. But with us, actually, if I think of all our docs, um, you know, if I'm there, they're all pretty much the same because I'm there. I'm making sure everything's so. Now I know some of my docs, yes, they might extract slower, okay, but they still get the same quality grafts. So yes, it might take a little bit longer, and you could argue maybe that the time, because it took a little bit longer, you might get a little bit less regrowth, which is probably negligible.
Yeah.
So if you're using a good storage solution at the right temperature, about 4 degrees Celsius, that is a negligible thing if it takes even an hour or two longer. So at the end of the day, making sure that everything is going good. So in a way, I kind of feel that it is my surgery. It's my orchestra, if that makes sense. That I'm conducting this orchestra from start to finish. And without me there, if it was just those docs, yeah, maybe things would be different. And if we do start working like that, franchising, etc. I 100% agree with you. Whoever's leading, performing that surgery really needs to have their name there, because
Yeah.
otherwise, how the hell will the patient know, like, what they saw a result that comes from I don't know, Las Vegas, and now they're in California with completely different person,
Yeah,
different team, just the brand name, right? So I agree
right.
with you 100%. And if we ever get there, it's certainly something that I would do. Maybe we should say who assisted by Dr. So and so. I mean, it's patients would probably like to hear that, and I wouldn't mind
Yeah,
putting it
sure.
on either.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because I just feel like, me as a patient, if I'm going to a clinic and there's several different clinics that kind of have multiple doctors. So it's not like you guys are exclusively doing this. This is actually kind of something that's becoming a lot more normalized. Clinics that have multiple doctors doing everything. Like they don't really have technicians, they have doctors doing the various steps. But I just feel like if there's a doctor that's kind of leading the surgery and kind of at least performing the critical aspects of it, and there's a really good result, or anything like that, I mean, they should kind of have their name attached to that result so that when patients are
100%.
researching, they could say, okay. And I think it'll even give you more peace of mind because you'll be like, okay, my surgery day is with Dr. X. And, I actually looked at his results and Dr. X is really good. Even, you could have kind of like a blurb on the site saying, Dr. X has been doctor with Trichogenics since whatever 2020. I think that would just give more peace of mind, and I think it's just sort of a more transparent way of just kind of researching. But obviously, I'm not a fool. I know, and this is what patients kind of fail to realize is that it's a big risk if you're a clinic doing this, right? Because
Correct.
you could potentially be promoting somebody who could then turn around and become your competitor. So, so it's a risk. It's a risk that a clinic would take doing this.
No, I agree with you, and I
I agree.
certainly, I certainly will take that, and we should probably
Start doing
start
it. Yeah.
start
I think
doing
we
it.
should
Yeah,
start doing it.
I do want to segue a little bit and ask you guys about repairs. I know, Aussie, you mentioned you had a hair transplant. You're not particularly happy about it. I have to say that I can't really tell, obviously, in the video, but
yeah, I
um,
styled it right.
yeah, but obviously there's a problem with nuances. You mentioned nuances, and this is
Mm,
something that a lot of people don't really realize, right? I think kind of the norm, especially on social media, is like, oh, he's got to go to Turkey, he's got to go to, Turkish hairlines and get that sort of like Lego man
mm.
square hairline that is like almost like a wall. The average person would look at it and say, oh, well, he's got hair. He's got, it looks better than just being bald. When you compare it to someone like Eric here, you go side by side and you're like, okay, that's a big difference, right? You start to see like the nuances, like you mentioned, the softness of the hairline. Whereas, like, it doesn't, like, in nature, it's not a wall of hair. Talk to me a little bit about the repairs that you guys have been seeing. And are the repairs increasing year by year?
Of
Yeah,
course, yeah.
yeah,
They are
yeah.
increasing year by year. And actually, some of the worst surgeries I've seen have come out of the UK, funnily enough.
Wow.
I think a lot of clinics there are hiring teams from all over the world and they just come and sort of fly by night. A lot of the times we're having to send them for laser first because the hairlines are
Mm.
so low that you'll have to laser off part of the hairline and then we will
Yeah,
correct it with singles. Terrible temporal peaks. We're actually going to correct Asi's temporal peaks and hairline.
because I got to laser my temporal peaks off and look
Uh,
ridiculous. And then I've got to punch out some of these grafts. Like, I don't know if I'll laser these. We'll probably punch them out. And then we got to reconstruct everything. So I'm going to look horrific for like 18 months or so. But it's going to be worth it. So I need to just get ready and do it.
I think this would be an interesting journey to kind of post because there's very, very few, and I've spoken to a few doctors that have had poor surgeries, and most of them don't want to talk about it in public. I think it would be super interesting if you kind of just vlogged it. You kind of did a diary about it. I mean, I know it's a personal
He
thing
has
for
no
you, Ozzy.
choice, just by the way. He has no choice.
No, of
He's
course.
gonna vlog
I,
it for sure. I'm gonna video document everything.
I
no,
think that
I'm
would be
very
great.
open when it comes to things like that. My own hair my own hair journey has taught me so much, and it's really what got me to love this field. So,
Asi
Great.
talks
That's great.
about this a lot, actually.
well, to be honest, for a while I was also like, I didn't really talk about it for a while. And you know what? A lot of people would compliment me. Like to this day, my patients come to me and we do the initial consultation and they look at me and say, "Doc, I want to look like you. Just give me hair like you." And I'm like, "No, you don't want hair like me. I promise you, you don't." And that's literally the response of most people. So yeah.
And that's people want hair like Asi because he's gotten the perfect haircut that will suit his hair. But Asi speaks about this a lot. He calls it hair freedom. You want to be able to do whatever you want with your hair. And that's the goal, right? Not I need to get a specific haircut so it doesn't look ridiculous. It needs to be free, free to do whatever you want with it. That's the actual goal.
A lot of these cases that it's horrific, and they've also been over harvested. So look, if it's horrific, but you've got donor hairs to play with, it's fine. We can fix it. I always say there's three kinds of repair. There's a easy repair, a medium repair, and a really, really difficult repair. And the easy repair usually is when at least the hairline was placed at an appropriate height. So it's very easy. We just go in front of it and fill it up. They hopefully have also not been over harvested. So we just go in front of it a little bit, single hairs, draw a new hairline, and that's pretty straightforward. Then you got the guys that literally they've dropped the hairline to the limit, so there's no going in front of it. You gotta either extract some of those offensive hairs, or most times, just unfortunately have to laser it off. And that can take a few treatments as well. And then the third case, when they've dropped it too low and they've also depleted your entire donor area. And then it really gets very, very challenging.
That so PP405, I made a video about it probably like a month ago. It's something that's been people are really, really interested in.
It seems like they've come up with a new sort of pathway to treat hair loss. So different to how 5-alpha reductase inhibitors like finasteride and dutasteride work, and also different to the way minoxidil works. It seems that in the studies, I think they phase 2A now. It seems that they've seen some positive results in a very short period of time. So in 8 weeks, they've seen like I don't know if I got the numbers correct, but I think about a 20% improvement in hair density and caliber in about 30% of the patients. So they've seen some nice results with it. It still needs a live hair, right, to switch it from that long telogen phase into its growing phase. So if there's complete destruction of the follicle, most likely it's not going to work. It's not going to be the cure to balding. I think that's what everyone's really been
Yes.
kind of like, let
This
me
is
hold on. I'm going to take my shiny bald head, rub this stuff on, you know, fan it a bit, or whatever you need to do, and I'm going to get hair within like 6 months. Likely isn't going to be like that.
before I let you guys go, I wanted to kind of field some live questions here. Here's a pretty interesting one, right? So, are transplanted hair permanent without finasteride? This is something that's it's a pretty common question. What are
Yeah.
your guys' views on that? Are hair transplant permanent without finasteride?
Kind of. It all depends on your level of balding, right? Because we've seen some of those guys that literally, when they're 7 years old, they're left with this strip of safe zone that's about this thick. And you never know how far someone's really going to progress. The best way we can see it is maybe looking at their family history, but you never really know where their safe zone is. When you're doing FUE, which most people are these days, you have to go slightly beyond the safe zone. It's still a safer zone, but if they're not on finasteride, they might actually recede into that zone. Exactly.
So this is a good example.
So they might actually recede into that safer zone. If you recede into that safe zone where we've extracted hairs, then those hairs will probably fall out in the future. But if you took finasteride, you might be able to keep that area and then the hairs would stay.
Yeah. Also, if you look at that photo, even the hair that has remained is certainly not at the same density that it was. So even that hair is pretty low density. So if we transplant hairs that were destined to miniaturize, well, they're going to miniaturize and regress. And that's why it's important to get a proper plan. And that's why people don't want to do transplants on young people, because we don't know how far you're going to go.
And that's why we don't do 6,000 follicles in one session. Oh yeah, come for 6,000
Correct.
follicles. It's going to destroy your donor area and you will never have another surgery again.
Correct.
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mostly.
But I was saying, if you're
Yeah.
23 years old, you've got frontotemporal recessions, a hairline that's perfectly fine for maybe a 33-year-old. The best thing to do probably is just take finasteride, prevent your balding, wait, give it time, wait another, hopefully like 10 years. Firstly, in 10 years' time, you're going to have a perfectly age appropriate hairline. All your other friends are going to have
Yeah.
worse hair than you. Okay. You'll probably feel fine about it and not go for a transplant. If it still bothers you for 10 years and you haven't really regressed, go for it. Fix those frontotemporals. But if you fix it at 23 and you regress very quickly in the next 7-10 years, you're going to be always chasing that low hairline, and eventually you're going to run out. As long as you're aware of the risks and you choose to take them and you're an adult, that's fine. But you need to be aware of them.
I'm not opposed to getting a hair transplant young if you're well informed. Like
Correct.
if you're
Yeah.
a young guy and you really want a hair transplant and you're like, I know the pros and the cons, I know what may occur, I'm willing to get on medication, I'm willing to stick with it, and I know that if I don't get on medication that this may happen. And if I know that and I still want to proceed, then fine, as long as the doctor has, kind of told them about what may occur. But you're absolutely right about give it time, because I know for me, I experienced hair loss I noticed it when I was 21, 22. And at first it was just my hairline, which honestly, my hairline is basically about the same as it was back then, placement wise. But I wanted that straight, hairline like all my friends had. I'm turning 40 this year. And let me tell you, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like this, I'm totally fine
Yeah.
with this. I don't care about it. It doesn't bother me. What matters more to me now is that I have an even density. I have,
Correct.
my crown. I
Yeah.
have my overall hair. I have my hair, right?
But actually, one of the youngest patients we've had is probably a 20-year-old. And, he was adamant, right? He was going somewhere. He really wanted to come to us. I had spoken to his brother. I had spoken to his mother. I tried to refuse him multiple times.
I just consulted a 21-year-old patient with frontotemporal recessions. And I told him, man, like, I know it bothers you now, but really you should try get over it. It's really not bad. I guarantee you, give it like 8 years and all your friends will have the same hairline, if not worse. Just continue with your finasteride. But this specific patient that Eric's talking about, I mean, poor kid, he really had, like, his entire frontal section was completely miniaturized, and he already had the appearance of somebody who's really balding. So for him, who are we to say no? You're not allowed to have a good head of hair in probably the most important time of your
Oh,
life
yeah.
to look good. Let's be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
like, who wants to
Yeah.
wait till they're 30 to actually get decent hair?
Yeah.
So we get that completely. And again, we spoke to his mother, and they knew all the risks and everything, and he got a fantastic result, and we actually still in touch with him till this day.
I hear people say like, "Oh, don't get a hair transplant. That's a bad idea, especially if you're young." I disagree with that. I think that you should definitely be trying to do something about your hair if you're young. And if you understand the pros and the cons, you understand what may occur if you don't take medication or if you continue to lose your hair, then I think a hair transplant can absolutely change your life. And in the most critical years of your life. One last question for you guys. This was kind of something that I thought was kind of interesting. Finasteride and family planning. It's something that a lot of guys are kind of interested in, especially once you kind of once you hit your 30s and you want to start a family.
Sure.
Maybe you've been on finasteride for quite a while. What are
So
your guys' views on that?
so I
Asi,
have a
Asi and I
very
differ on
long
this
video.
one. Asi and I are
Yeah.
Oh,
very,
okay, nice.
we differ
So
on this one.
Let's get a little
so
debate going.
this is what I say.
Yeah.
So I have a very long and boring video about this, really looking into all the studies they've done on sperm and finasteride. So first let's get this straight, right? If you have a pregnant wife, she should not be touching finasteride, especially topical finasteride. Finasteride it is only like what we know is it's only rarely harmful if your wife is exposed to it during a critical phase of her pregnancy. That DHT, if she has DHT inhibition, certain sexual aspects of the fetus won't develop properly. Okay, so that is actually the real danger of finasteride. But now, what guys are mainly worried about is, look, is this going to make me infertile? And the answer is no, unless you are already teetering on that infertile line. Then it can drop you to make you completely infertile. And what I'd say is, if you're worried about this, go test your sperm. I mean, you can even buy a little sperm check at Walgreens. I think it costs like $50. You know what is really like a male contraceptive that guys don't be don't seem like they're scared to do is testosterone and any
Yeah,
testosterone
I was about to
derivative.
say that.
So yeah, if guys are taking like a
TRT.
TRT or like D-bol, Deca,
Yeah.
Winstrol, Anavar, all the fun stuff, that's really going to make you properly infertile and potentially irreversible if you don't take things like HCG. You really are now making yourself into a science project. Like you got to take like
Yeah.
human chorionic gonadotropin to keep the testicular function going, and even that sometimes you still get shut down.
I think that's where we agree. But then,
Yes.
what is your protocol for someone who is trying to conceive? Because that's where we
So
disagree.
so I
Mhm.
think I think it depends. So what I say is, what Eric likes to do is tell people to stop the finasteride 3 months before they try conceive, and then start again when they do conceive.
Even though there is no evidence that it leaches into the semen, I still think,
In
why
high
take the
amount.
risk? Yeah,
Yeah.
why take the risk? So, why
Mhm.
Yeah.
expose a pregnant woman to finasteride? Just use a condom, and then you can carry on using it as normal.
Well, guys, I respect your time. I know it's been almost over an hour now. I just want to leave you guys with the possibility to shout out some of your guys' stuff. Like if somebody watches this and is interested in contacting you guys, how can they get in contact with you? What's your website and IG handle, all that stuff?
So we are Trichogenics. I know it's a long name. It means tricho means hair, genics means new beginnings. So new beginnings of hair. So TrichoGenics.com is our website, and then I think our biggest platform is probably TikTok. We have a lot of cool videos on TikTok. Also at Trichogenics. Also on Instagram at Trichogenics and YouTube.
Thank you guys for joining the podcast. I appreciate it so much.